Stop scrolling, because if you have ever watched two actors share a scene and suddenly forgotten that you were watching fiction, Wei and Bai Lu have the kind of screen presence that makes exactly that happen. Their chemistry does not simply arrive when they appear together. It builds quietly, pulls you closer, and then catches you completely off guard. From the smallest glance to the moments when silence seems to say more than an entire conversation, this is the kind of pairing that makes viewers pause, replay scenes, and ask one unforgettable question. How can two people make a fictional story feel this real? If you are a fan of unforgettable chemistry, intense emotions, beautiful visuals, and those scenes that stay in your mind long after the episode ends, keep reading, because the magic of Wei and Bai Lu deserves a closer look. There are screen pairings that entertain you, and then there are screen pairings that make you feel as though you have accidentally walked into someone else's world. Wei and Bai Lu belong to the second category. Whenever they share the screen, there is an unusual balance between softness and intensity. Nothing has to be exaggerated. A glance can become a conversation. A pause can become a confession. A smile can completely change the mood of a scene. That is what makes their appeal so fascinating. Their magic is not only about romance. It is about anticipation. It is about waiting for the moment when their characters finally look at each other. It is about noticing the tiny changes in expression that happen before either character says what they are truly thinking. And most importantly, it is about the feeling that something important is happening even when almost nothing is being said. Imagine the scene. Two characters are standing several steps apart. Neither speaks. The atmosphere suddenly becomes quiet. One looks away as if trying desperately to hide an emotion. The other watches carefully, almost as though they already know the truth. A few seconds pass. Then their eyes meet. That is it. No dramatic speech. No grand declaration. Just one look. Yet somehow that single moment can feel more powerful than an entire romantic monologue. This is where the appeal of Wei and Bai Lu becomes impossible to ignore. Both performers have the ability to communicate through subtle expressions, and when those styles meet, the result can be incredibly captivating. Wei often brings a calm, composed energy to his performances. There can be an almost effortless confidence in the way he carries a scene. He does not always need to dominate the moment because his presence naturally draws attention. Bai Lu, meanwhile, has a remarkable ability to make her characters feel emotionally alive. She can move from playful to serious, from confident to vulnerable, sometimes within the same scene. Put those qualities together, and something fascinating happens. The scene begins to breathe. Their characters do not feel like two actors waiting for their lines. They feel like two people trying to understand each other. And that difference matters. The most unforgettable romantic scenes are rarely the loudest ones. Sometimes the most powerful moment is when one character notices something about the other that nobody else sees. Maybe it is a slight change in expression. Maybe it is the hesitation before an answer. Maybe it is the way one character suddenly becomes protective. Those tiny details create the feeling that these two people have developed a language of their own. That is the kind of chemistry viewers love to discover. And once you notice it, you start watching differently. Suddenly, every glance becomes suspicious. Every pause feels meaningful. Every smile makes you wonder what the characters are not saying. That is when a simple scene becomes addictive. Picture another unforgettable moment. Baila's character is surrounded by people, yet she appears completely alone. Everyone is talking. The room is full of movement. But then Miles' character enters. He does not rush toward her. He simply notices her. Their eyes meet across the room. For a moment, everything else seems to disappear. The music rises gently. She looks away. He smiles slightly. And suddenly the audience understands something before the characters even admit it. There is a connection here. That kind of scene can be simple on paper, but the right performers can transform simplicity into something extraordinary. And that is where the phrase pure on-screen magic begins to make sense. Because magic is not always about something spectacular happening. Sometimes magic is about making a small moment feel enormous. Wei and Bai Lu can create that feeling through the smallest details. A smile, a glance, a teasing comment, a moment of silence, a hand reaching out. a character turning back before leaving, a quiet expression that says, "I am worried about you," without the words ever being spoken. These moments are what make audiences emotionally invested. Then comes the scene everyone secretly waits for, the misunderstanding. Every great romantic story seems to know how to create one. One character thinks the other does not care. The other is desperately trying to explain. Neither wants to admit how deeply they are affected. The tension rises. The conversation becomes sharper. Then suddenly, there is silence. Miles' character looks at Bai Lu's character and realizes that the argument is not really about what happened. It is about fear. Fear of losing someone. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of admitting just how important that person has become. And instead of another dramatic speech, there is simply a quiet change in expression. That is when the scene hits, because the audience finally understands what has been hiding underneath everything. The characters care. They care far more than they are willing to admit. This emotional layering is one of the reasons viewers become so attached to romantic pairings. You do not simply watch the relationship develop. You experience the uncertainty alongside the characters. You wait for the confession. You fear the rejection. You celebrate the smallest victory. And when the characters finally understand each other, the emotional payoff feels enormous. Now imagine a completely different scene. This time there is laughter. Bai Lu's character is teasing Miles' character. He tries to remain serious. She refuses to let him. She says something playful. He gives her an unimpressed look. She laughs. He tries not to smile, but he loses the battle. That tiny smile appears. And suddenly the entire scene becomes adorable. There is something special about romantic chemistry that can move naturally between intensity and humor. Without humor, romance can become too heavy. Without emotional depth, comedy can become forgettable. But when both performers can move between those emotions naturally, the relationship feels much more believable. You begin to imagine these characters existing outside the scenes we are shown. You wonder what they would be like when the cameras are not around. Would they argue about something ridiculous? Would one secretly make the other laugh? Would they pretend not to care, while obviously caring too much? Would they notice each other's moods without being told? These are the questions that make fictional couples unforgettable. And then comes the quiet scene. Perhaps it is raining outside. Perhaps the characters are sitting somewhere peaceful. There is no dramatic conflict. No major revelation. Just two people talking. Bai Lu's character asks a simple question. Miles' character answers. She looks at him. He looks back. There is a brief pause. Then they smile. Nothing spectacular happens. Yet somehow this can become one of the most memorable scenes of the entire story.
Why?
Because romance is not always about grand gestures. Sometimes it is about comfort. The feeling that you can sit beside someone without needing to fill every second with words. The feeling that silence is no longer awkward. The feeling that another person's presence is enough. That is a powerful kind of intimacy. And when actors can make an audience believe in that feeling, viewers remember them. This is also why Wei and Bai Lu create so much fascination when discussed together. Their appeal goes beyond individual performances. It is the contrast, the calm energy against the expressive energy, the reserved expression against the playful reaction, the serious moment against the unexpected smile, the quiet character against the one who refuses to let silence win. Contrast creates tension. Tension creates anticipation. Anticipation keeps viewers watching. And once viewers become emotionally invested, every scene matters. Even a simple walk down a corridor can suddenly feel important. Imagine Miles' character walking ahead. Bai Lu's character follows. She calls his name. He stops. He turns around. She starts to say something. Then she changes her mind. He waits. She smiles and says it was nothing.
He knows she is hiding something.
Instead of walking away, he waits a little longer. That is the moment. Not because anything huge happened, but because the audience understands the question hanging in the air.
What is she really trying to say?
And why is he so determined to find out? Scenes like this create suspense without needing complicated action. They make the audience lean closer. They make you want to continue watching. They make you think, just say it already. Then there are the protective moments. These are often among the most popular scenes in romantic dramas because they reveal feelings without requiring a confession. A character is in trouble. Miles' character notices first. His expression changes immediately. The calm exterior disappears. He moves toward her. Bai Lu looks surprised. She asks why he is there. He gives a simple answer. Because I was worried about you. That one sentence can destroy the emotional defenses of an entire audience. Because suddenly the relationship has changed. The characters may still refuse to define it. They may still pretend that they are only friends. They may still tease each other. But the audience knows. Something has shifted. And once that shift happens, every interaction afterward becomes more interesting. A casual conversation suddenly feels romantic. A joke suddenly feels like flirting. A disagreement suddenly feels like jealousy. A simple goodbye suddenly feels like a possible farewell. That is how chemistry becomes storytelling. It is not just about two attractive performers standing beside each other. It is about making the audience believe that their characters have emotional consequences for one another. When one is happy, the other becomes happier. When one is hurt, the other notices. When one disappears, the other feels the absence. When one smiles, the other cannot help reacting. That is the emotional architecture of a memorable pairing. And then comes the moment fans wait for. The confession. But imagine doing it differently. No huge crowd. No elaborate speech. No dramatic announcement.
Just the two of them alone.
Miles' character finally looks at Bai Lu.
He starts to speak.
Stops. Looks away. She waits. He looks back. This time, he does not hesitate. He tells her what she means to him. She does not immediately answer. For a few seconds, there is complete silence. Then she smiles. That smile becomes the answer. Imagine the emotional reaction. The tension that has been building for episodes suddenly releases. All those previous misunderstandings. All those stolen glances. All those almost confessions. All those moments when they stood close but said nothing. Everything suddenly makes sense. That is the payoff audiences live for. The reason scenes like these become unforgettable is because the emotion has been earned. The audience has waited. The characters have struggled. The relationship has developed. And finally, the truth is revealed. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about a pairing like Wei and Bai Lu is that the magic does not depend entirely on romance. It is also about friendship,
Trust. Respect. Playfulness.
emotional support, the feeling that two characters can genuinely enjoy being around each other. A memorable screen pairing should make you believe that these people would still want to spend time together even if romance were removed from the story. That is when chemistry becomes something deeper. It becomes connection. And connection is what viewers remember. Think about the scenes that stay with you after a drama ends. Usually they are not necessarily the biggest scenes. Sometimes it is the way someone smiled after hearing a familiar voice. Sometimes it is a character waiting outside in the rain. Sometimes it is a playful argument. Sometimes it is the moment two people finally stop pretending that they do not care. Sometimes it is a simple goodbye. The reason these moments remain powerful is because they make us recognize something familiar. We have all experienced anticipation. We have all wondered what someone really meant. We have all wanted to say something and changed our minds. We have all remembered a smile long after the moment ended. That is why good romantic storytelling works. It takes fictional situations and fills them with emotions that feel real. And when performers like Wei and Bai Lu bring those emotions to life, the screen can feel much smaller. The audience becomes part of the moment. You are no longer simply watching. You are waiting. You are hoping. You are guessing. You are emotionally invested. Then comes the final scene. The characters stand together after everything they have been through. There is no need for another complicated conversation. They already understand each other. Miles' character looks at Bai Lu. She smiles. He smiles back. They walk away together. The camera stays behind them. The music begins. And the audience is left with that strangely satisfying feeling that the journey was worth every second. That is the magic of a memorable screen pairing. It is not one scene. It is the accumulation of hundreds of tiny moments. A glance here. A smile there, a disagreement, a joke, a moment of concern, a quiet conversation, a near confession, a second chance, a final realization. Together, those moments create something much bigger than the individual scenes. They create a story people want to remember. So when someone says Wei and Bai Lu have pure on-screen magic, it is easy to understand why. Their appeal comes from the details. It comes from the way tension can exist in silence. It comes from the way humor can make romance feel natural. It comes from the way emotional scenes can become powerful without becoming excessive. Most importantly, it comes from the feeling that whenever they share the screen, something interesting could happen. And that possibility is what keeps audiences watching. Because perhaps the greatest secret of screen chemistry is not knowing exactly what will happen next. It is believing that whatever happens, you will care. That is the real magic. So tell us your favorite Wei and Bai Lu moment. Was it the first glance, the funniest exchange, the most emotional conversation, the protective moment, the almost confession, the unexpected smile, or the scene that made you stop the episode and replay it immediately? Drop your favorite moment in the comments and tell us why it stayed with you. And if Wei and Bai Lu are one of those pairings you simply cannot get enough of, share this article with another fan, because some screen chemistry is simply too unforgettable to keep to yourself.